Hello and welcome. As the date would be the 23rd day of September 2019, and all bets, literally trades and of the like, within your own risk and your own reward. I'll go over the risks and a couple bets that I've already made. I have one strong bet for tonight. Oh, I really love it. Um, I feel the NHL preseason can be very, very profitable, and I got a very strong selection. I hope I don't know how long the price will stay as good as it is, but it will probably change. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. As far as Bitcoin is concerned, you see, there isn't much and a lot to talk about, so I should go over this. As I didn't mean to put the drawing tool in, I actually because I just happened to have it click, but really it's all about what's happening right now within the 18, how it's declining, how it's exiting, and how it exited on the 19th, and then it recovered, failed breakdown, and totally the failure to even attempt, even try to break out. Thus, the lower highs and making to the 18 average of lows over the last 3 days, supporting it magnificently 3 days ago, piercing below it on this day, congesting it yesterday, and exitation of it today. And we still got this lower end of the support before it really has a true breakdown of this range, even though it's pretty much right at this Fibonacci line right now. I really want to talk about gambling and betting because if you're playing Bitcoin in this, it's not even close to not. I mean, I think almost I can go deep into a gambling conversation where almost everything is gambling. And you're kind of forced into it with the laws of nature. It's just how do you control it, really, more than anything, based on the fact that gambling is taking some sort of chance with some sort of thus that of chance. Anything that doesn't have a 0 or 100% likelihood of happening. Is it 0 or 100% likely it's either going to crash or go way up? I would say not. But as it goes right now, that's how I look at it. So then, let's look quickly at the dominance of Bitcoin and then move into some gambling and sports betting talk. And this sucks because they just got some sort of error they're going to have to fix in this. What happened on today's session? This is just. That's just. I guess this is a way to look at it. And this works. What happened on the daily? Is that still there? I mean, what the F is going on, huh? Anyway. Within this, we can see, 18, it's really not doing anything. It's all the same thing. If you have any rally in here, it's really got to get above this to even start considering the fact that this is can continue its move. It's got to get above this area here and start at minimum. So not much else to talk about that on that there. Let's switch over to Bitcoin Cash, which interesting story. As usually Bitcoin Cash is good. One problem I have with Bitcoin, I haven't had much of it in the last year or plus now, but a lot in 2017 I had, was how sometimes Bitcoin would just take so long to get, not only to get acknowledged on the blockchain, but to even get its second and even first confirmations and really acknowledgement, but its first and second confirmations, it could be really slow. Interestingly, with Bitcoin, I made one Bitcoin transfer, and it was confirmed on. I think I sent it to Binance, and it was like after like 4 minutes, and it was confirmed. I was like, never seen that before. Literally, it's always like if I'm sending Bitcoin, that's minimum 20-30 minute wait for the second confirmation. And it's a minimum 10-minute wait, 15-minute wait for you to even see it's pending on the page. It's usually. Well, I wanted to make a wager with the Thursday night football game for just a tight end to get like 18 yards. And it was like 45 minutes until kickoff, so no problem. And it took forever to get on the blockchain to the point where I couldn't make the wager. Thankfully, I only got 8 yards receiving. Then the next night, the a bunch of games are going on. I was thinking about taking the Calgary Stampeders, laying 7 points against the Toronto Argos, as it was a spot where Toronto was like you won the Super Bowl kind of spot. I mean, a huge one at that as well, which meant it was a very good fade week against the Argos. And I noticed they were down 20-0 in the second quarter, but they actually lost by 7. It would have been a tie, but that's not what I bet. as baseball was on. I was looking at the Blue Jays Yankees game on Friday night. I think it was Friday. And it was the next night, yeah. I a lot of the things I was looking at was a complete shutout of losses. I lost everything. I mean, I only made one bet and I lost it. So I've already given you the spoiler for it, but that's fine. But you don't know what I bet. I'm going to get to that. What I didn't bet. Well, first thing, Jay Happ was starting for the Yankees, and throughout the year he was playing horrible. But recently, before his start, not a start before prior to this, but like three prior to that, like wow, it was like one hitters and like three hitters. It was like wow, he's hot. Now they were given incredible odds for the Blue Jays leadoff hitter, I think it was Alford, to get a base hit, and it was close to even odds. I'm thinking that's not that bad, but I didn't take that, and he didn't get a base hit. And then for Randall Grichuk to get two bases or more walks, don't think count, but he didn't do that either. And I also was thinking take the Yankees maybe to win by two in the game, or maybe to score 6 runs in the game. But instead, score 4 runs in the first 5 innings, at least, or more. And one of the things I was thinking of, it's just going to come down to this. This is my luck. Because it's definitely wild and volatile and interesting. Throughout my history, anyway. That it's going to come down. The Yankees are going to they're going to get 3 runs and they're going to get close, and they're going to get 3 runs and they're going to get most of the runs in the 5th inning. That's what's going to happen. I was thinking they get 3 runs in the fifth, so I was kind of off on that exact prediction. But as I was watching the games, first inning, DJ LeMahieu, the leadoff hitter, I got out. And then Aaron Judge walked the second at bat, but nothing else happened. Second inning was a complete wash. I didn't even watch the third. I noticed they got a run in the fourth. I'm like, yeah, I guess a little bit of help. And then I happened to turn the game on the television at this exact moment. It's 4-3. Aaron Judge, who homered in the prior inning, and I didn't know that until about 60 seconds because the announcer said he homered in the fourth. So I'm like, oh, cool. And the count is 3-0. And there's a man at second base. Okay, come on, get a base hit here, Aaron. Get a double, get another homer. Come on, do it for me. And it took a little bit of time, but not much. The count then went to 3-1. And I think there was another foul ball as well. So at least a couple pitches had surpassed. Maybe another foul, but I think it was the third pitch that ended it. And it was a fly out to left field. And he could have nailed it. And the pitcher for the Blue Jays was one that was very wild. And I was one that I really wanted to fade big time. It was a huge, huge Toronto fade spot. And tonight is as well. That's another spoiler for one of my two selections. So therefore, it was a loss. And I'm thinking, okay, that's interesting. I didn't even look on Saturday, even though there was a full college football slate, and there's always baseball and hockey going on now. I didn't even look. I didn't even. I quickly looked at the Leaf game, and I looked at no, I don't really see much in value there. I didn't even see how the game ended. I didn't even see the score of it, and yet I'm playing the Toronto game tonight in a spot to fade. But we'll get to that in a second. So instead, I decided for the NFL. I really like the week. Daniel Jones is somebody I researched. I watched his play at Duke University, and all I could see was OMG NFL style already. And this guy's like Peyton Manning esque, like the way I just see a lot of similarities. The only difference is that he's got a lot of good scrambling abilities. And then I watched pretty much his entire preseason tape. And I'm just looking at it. I know they always say, "Oh, you can't count what happens in preseason." Yeah, well, let's just look at the tangibles, the laws of physics. And if he's the way he plays, how is this going to present against the Tampa Bay defense? I was thinking, okay, this guy's going to do good. I like him. I think he's going to be very, very great. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to just bet a whole bunch of money lines yesterday. I don't know how well I would have done if I would have went larger. Early game, I also like the Detroit Lions to beat the Philadelphia Eagles, mainly because I'm not big on Carson Wentz, and they have two receivers out of the lineup. And they were down to Aguilar and Whiteside. And Whiteside was a no, and Zacharias. I can't forget him. But either way, it's still. I'm not big on Carson Wentz. I'm not big on the Eagles, although I think they're pretty good. And Detroit, I'm actually starting to. I mean, that whole division is really interesting. The NFC North. We're not going to get into that, but interesting ending to that game because I mean it was a very much. Carson Wentz went for it on like fourth down and 10 at like his own 20, with like 2 minutes and 40 seconds left and two timeouts. I'm like, even I would punt there, and I'm an aggressive play. I don't play call, but I got an aggressive strategy game theorist. I'm an aggressive game theorist. How about that? Risk reward always though. And at that point, when Carson Wentz did missed it, it was like sweet. But the Lions still, because of the fact with 2 minutes and 40 seconds left and two timeouts, they Philadelphia get the ball with 2 minutes left. And in that, if they do, then they can still score. And the score was only a 3 point game, so even a field goal would have only made it or even it was 1 point game. I think it was even that. It was what I don't know. It was close. I think it might have been three. And then they couldn't get the first down, so they had to punt. Okay, so but you're not too concerned because they have to go for a field goal, brother. They have to go for a field goal. So it was a 3 point game. Yeah, it was a 3 point game, and a field goal would have made it a 6 point game. Okay, well, just kick the ball. I mean, you don't want to miss it, but they block it. And now it looks like the guy's going to return it for a touchdown. Okay, well, and I got other bets too going on that were big bets that were live. Now the big bets didn't win. We're talking 5, 6 figure bets. They end up fading out in the 4 o'clock games. But the this one here, they they weren't able to make it happen. They returned it, but Carson Wentz could not complete the drive. Detroit wins. Now in the New York Giants game, I took them as well, but I didn't take anything else. I was going to take a bunch of other games like 2, 3, 4, but I really couldn't find anything I securely wanted to confidently take. And I liked the odds I was getting. I was getting about 7-1 odds on the two combined, a little over 7-1. Now with that game, that ending was even larger because by halftime, I was already drawing the Giants out. And Daniel Jones didn't look bad in the first half. It's the Giants' defense that looked bad. Barkley dropped the ball, then got injured, and literally he dropped a touchdown. Although Aaron Jones bailed him out by running for it on the very next play. Or Daniel Jones, not Aaron Jones. Daniel Jones. I don't know what I said before. Anyway, near the end of the game, the Giants in the second half, the defense came through, and Jones was looking really good. And well, he managed to make one of the sweetest touchdowns via the run, which is how interesting that was. His second rushing touchdown, the game-winning one. And then as the game was completing, now we have to trust the Giants' defense because they had about a minute and change, 72 seconds I think it was, to get a field goal. And I mean, I was seeing it all game. Especially, it was Mike Evans, 3 touchdowns. He was just lighting it up, and they got the ball not only to field goal range, but they got it to the 10-yard line. Okay, now I'm running the game off again. But the Never Figure League, anything can happen. The botch, the kicker misses the field goal, and I get a nice BCH payout on it. Nothing too large, just a small 3 figure dollar term, and close to a Bitcoin Cash. Okay, nice. But what I did after that is I made another wager, and this is something that I've been meaning to do more because I've been very good at things like this. Another one is teasers, but I'm not into that right now. And I haven't even checked to see what the new lines are, but I made this bet last night, probably close to midnight, 11:30 at night. 11, no, it was even before then. The game was going on. It was live at that time. 10:30 maybe at night. 10:30. And LA Chargers. I mean, I've never in my life ever laid 16.5 points on the NFL team on the road. But I'm wondering if Miami's worst team ever. And I got to think by far it's got to be the first season and two of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers that are the worst team ever, at least that I can say, at least in the modern era, which is since Super Bowl one, even 10 years before Super Bowl one. They got to be the worst team from my research. And this is really, really bad. Um, and the Chargers have really impressed me this week, too, as well. Philadelphia, Green Bay. I've been big on Green Bay since the preseason, and they have been showing me that's for real. I love that defense, and as I mentioned with Philadelphia, this I'm really I'm again. This is more of a fade of Philadelphia as well too. Now, I did mention I like Detroit, and I'm going against them, but one of the teams I'm really really strong on is Kansas City, and I'm strong on Baltimore too. And I like how Patrick Mahomes dealt him, how Patrick Mahomes was a, or how just the Baltimore quarterback Lamar Jackson was able to compose himself because I watched bits and pieces of that game. But Patrick Mahomes, I mean, I can't compare him to Manning because he's a totally different style of quarterback. Jones, I think, is comparable to him in style. But I think Jones might be as good as I think Jones in New York is good, but I think Mahomes is one of the greatest. Could he get 60, 65 all-purpose touchdowns type player? We'll see. But laying 6.5 on the road against a team that I'm pretty okay on is something I don't do often as well. But I look at Kansas City as like one of the top team out there, like with New England and like the. It's almost like this is the first time since the early 1990s where I know what the conference championship is at the start of the year. It's Kansas City, New England, but it was like that before with the they did not Green Bay. It was with the Dallas Cowboys and the San Francisco Giants for like 2 3 years. And it was for all that time. And Steve Young versus Joe Aikman, and the Cleveland Browns against the Baltimore Ravens -5.5. I'm big on Baltimore, and I'm so anti Cleveland. And I'm watching the game last night. I'm thinking you're letting me take Baltimore -5.5. The mistake probably made was I probably should have put a nice straight bet on Baltimore as it was laying 5.5. Because the Browns were just looking. Baker Mayfield's terrible. He is just terrible. I think. I will see. And the odds on that is 12 to 1. But sometimes what my strategy is, just find a strong play and just go with it. And I think tonight is that. I think tonight is that with an NHL preseason game. As of now, I got a money line at around -120, minus something like that. And I just think that that's just too amazing. And I got this is a Toronto Maple Leaf. This is what I looked. First thing I looked for was a Toronto Maple Leaf Twitter post. And I'm going to show this again after. Then I looked at the Montreal Twitter post because they only showed on Toronto who they were playing for tonight. And then on the Montreal Twitter, they showed both. So I'm going to put this on my paint image and then make it so we can actually read it. And what I do is I push print screen on my computer. I go to like paint and I push paste. And there we have it. And now I paste, I can increase the size of it. Okay, so let me just now scroll it as need be. There we have it. It's a little not the greatest of fonts, but let's look at this Maple Leafs lineup tonight. We have Hutchinson and Nervith in goal. And I think Nervith, I think, was with Dallas back in the time, and he's been around with the Leafs for a bit. So it's like a backup battle, really, more than anything, on their goalie. So who do we have in the Leafs? Schmaltz, Hall, Reed, Agostino, Harper, Gravel, Shore, Bracco, Gaudette, Lindgren, Iberg, Engvall, Archibald, Lindgren, Rubens, Peckin. Who are these guys? There is no Austin Matthews. There is no Mitchell Marner. There is no John Tavares. There is no Morgan Riley. There is no there's no Barry. Of course, there's no Freddie Anderson in net. There isn't even Sandin isn't even playing, the rookie prospect. They just don't have anybody playing. On the right-hand side, all I need to see is Carey Price and Max Domi. Thomas Tatar is a pretty good player for the Montreal Canadiens. There's a lot of names that I don't really know. Jeff Petrie is a name I recognize on Montreal. And Keith Kincaid is a solid backup as well, former New Jersey Devil. And Montreal's 4-0 to start the preseason. I didn't even know that. One thing I was going to say, and I just showed it right there, is that's all I really looked at is the roster and the price. Montreal was like -125 money line. Yeah. Yeah, this is a large. This to me looks like a supreme pick, actually, especially with the fact Montreal's 4-0, Toronto hasn't gotten together, and this is a complete minor league team for the Munchies. Le lundi 23 septembre, 23, and I'm not even going to try to say 2019 en français. But in my school years living in Ontario, Canada, I took French class for from grade 1 through that of grade 9. I had to take Francais and part of school trip. It was almost a forced trip. It was a forced trip. And interestingly enough, because one thing I want to talk about just brings it in line, because I wasn't going to talk about the school trip, but having to go to Quebec City. But when did you take me to Quebec City? Oh, worst time. Oh man, really? And Quebec City wasn't fun. It was interesting in a couple of places. Montreal's a much nicer city to go to. I mean, you can speak English there. But you can't really speak, not in 1989, you couldn't speak, and I don't even think so in 2019, you couldn't speak English in that city. But it was in 1989, and not only in 1989, but in like May of 1989. And I grew up, anyone born in the 1970s, which includes me, I could never understand how could you like the Leafs as a kid? I mean, I know we live in Toronto area, whatever, but that's a bad team we have. And I learned as a gambler early on, like 9 years old, 10 years old, 11, whatever, just with like friends and whatever, with your parents and whatever, your dad. Let's I'll bet the Leafs to beat Montreal because they did almost every time. The Leafs were garbage back then. They were garbage throughout the entire 70s from my research. They were garbage throughout the early '80s. That was easy research because I had some good reading material back then. I wish I had those books from like 1984 and '85 that I had, which shows how bad the Leafs really were in 1980 in the early '80s and how good Montreal really was then. At least they were in the tailspin. They were in consolidation mode in the early '80s. Montreal was, especially because it was the Islanders and the Edmonton Oilers that were kicking ass at that time. But the play was always betting on Montreal to beat Toronto, and I learned then that's well that and my first ever poker bluff when I literally bet with nothing when I was like 12 years old or whatever on the final street of a weird game. But key word was the worst ranked hand out of like 20 ranks or whatever the total rankings were, and they both folded. And I'm like, hey, it worked. But that was why it was why I had a hard time why there were so many Leaf fans. And all my well, I had two good friends. One was also a Montreal fan, one was a Leaf fan as well. So, but anyway, for tonight, there's I don't know if this information will help you down below. I would expect this game to be a 2-3 goal victory probably. I'd be surprised if the Leafs could even score 2 goals. And even if they do score two, they're probably not going to win. Montreal comes out to a 4-0. So they're confident, obviously. So, like Domi, how does he not get good fantasy day? A goal, a couple assists, stuff like that. Anyway, thank you for tuning in. Have yourself a great day. Bye bye.